What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. As always, I'm AJ Malillo,
And I'm Stephen Rombolo.
and you are listening to Bridging the Gap. And you can check out all Jersey First content on our YouTube, where you can hit that subscribe button, that little notification bell. You'll get all your Bridging the Gap, all of your Nader narrative, and all of your Real Talk with Fernando content. You can also check us out on jerseyfirst.org, where you can sign up for our pledge and sign up for our newsletter. And of course, you can check us out on demand anytime at onnj.com. And it's another beautiful week, and it's another beautiful set of stories. I get beautiful is maybe not the right word, but we'll get to them. But Stephen, how is what's this? Week 2, week 3 of law school? I've lost track, if I'm being honest.
So this is, by my calculations, week 2.
Fair.
However, it feels like this is the only thing that I've ever done in my entire life. I feel like
Yep.
it's utterly consumed me. Days feel like weeks feel like months, and I imagine one round off a month, it's going to feel like I've been here for a year. So, you know, it, I wish that I could do a good enough job. And this is something like I know when we had these conversations and the positions were different and you were in your 1L, I was working, getting ready for all this. Like I could see it in your face, the stress, and you would say things and I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Now that I'm here and I'm not even fully into it, it is an experience like no other. I don't think that there's anything that I could even compare it to. My best guess would be, my bodybuilding show, just in terms of like demand, time, organization, and like rigor. But it's a totally different kind of thing. You could subject me to all the physical pain and starvation that you want, and I'll just about make it through. Ask me to wake up at 6 o'clock, for 5 days in a row and put in 12 to. I did a 15-hour day the other day. No joke, 15 hours between classes, studying, working on assignments, getting ahead, trying to plan, sending emails. Like it's a totally different beast. So 2 weeks, like I said, it feels like I've been here for a month.
You understand. You get it. You're getting it. It's the only people that I would imagine understand it in a similar sense and probably have it worse are med students. I would say
Yeah,
definitely have it worse. But you know what? If I'm being honest, I'd rather my doctors go through more of this type of rigor than my lawyers. But that might just be me. At least a lawyer's not cutting into you. Like they got an important job and all, but your doctor you're trusting with a little bit more important things, I'd say. And
I
that's your
concur.
life. I mean, not that
And
your
I got
lawyer you trust with your life too, but just in a different context.
absolutely. And I got to say, I think it's worth noting, and I know I briefly mentioned this to you yesterday, but I think the craziest, most tangible thing for me is I feel like I'm on edge all the time, right? With like a lot of different things. Like I feel like if I sit down for 5 minutes, I'm like, I there's something that I should probably be doing right now. And then what's really messing me up is language. So like all the things that I'm reading are not regular English, and I'm reading so much of it. I'm noticing that like when I'm talking to people, I, I'm talking like a lawyer, and I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. I got to do a better job, I think, at separating like the 9 to 5, and then like when I call my buddies, be able to be like, hey, what's up, ba, 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 and not approach it as if it's some sort of like a big important, conversation that I need to use this extensive vocabulary for. So there's a lot of mental tricks being played.
Yeah, for sure. And you get better as you go. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I do a pretty good job of separating those two things. I also, even in class, I'm not one to talk like a lawyer. Like, it's one thing when you're arguing and you're making like an actual, like standing up in front of somebody making an oral argument. You use your jargon and whatnot. But I try and do a pretty good job of just like being pretty like chill when I'm in a classroom setting. Like at the end of the day, it's still a classroom. You might be
Yeah.
learning different content, but it's like any other classroom you've been in for the last 18 years or however long we've been doing this. So, but yeah,
No.
you'll get it. You'll get it. Um, anyway, I got nothing to really talk about. It's year 2. It's week 2. We're rolling through. I mean, it's doesn't get any necessarily easier. You know what you're more capable of. Like that's the only thing that gets easier is you know how to do it. You don't have to learn the how, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you don't have to do the work. And I think that that might be something that not that I didn't realize. Obviously, I realized it, but I thought, oh, the work is going to get easier. And it's like, that's where the trick is. It's like, no, the work doesn't get easier. They say it gets easier because you don't have to learn how to do the work. You've already learned how to do the work. Now you just
Yep.
got to do it. That doesn't make
Yep.
it easier, but we'll make it through.
That's it. That's it. And I think a big part of that too, and this is something that like you said, is learning how. I feel like that is consuming most of my time, is like procedural things. Like I was telling you today, I did my first, IRAC assignment, which is, how you work through a case to answer an exam question, whatever. And it was like the actual like fact finding, issue spotting, like those are things that I have practice with, that practical knowledge. But it's the application in this new setting that I have to learn that is just overwhelming at times, because you're learning it. I'm learning it in one class, and then I simultaneously have to apply it to 3 other classes as I'm also learning it. 3 totally different subject matters, 3 very involved subject matters. So it's a tall order. But
And
I
each class it's
imagine,
done differently, slightly.
yes,
Like the different aspects of it are going to be done differently.
I imagine by the time I'm in 2L, I'll feel, I'm going to call it like, minute relief, I guess, where it's like, I know how to do this. I don't have to learn it all again. Just actually
Right.
doing it.
Now it's like you're expected to just go ahead,
Just know.
do it. Just know.
Yeah.
So just do it. Yeah.
Just
But
get it
that's
done.
as is anything in life, right? It's like you're starting a new job, you're starting anything new, you have to learn the how. But then you become the experienced person in it and they expect you to know the how. So it's like now you just got to do the job. It's
Yeah.
like anything else. Anything else. You got
So
to apply the same concepts to no matter what you're doing.
it's a great
But
perspective.
we got 2 stories. This is going to be a quick episode. Steve and I got a lot going on, as you can tell. But I would say our first story will start with something coming out of our alma mater, along with Rutgers University. So basically, students are heading back to campus, and 2 universities are requiring COVID vaccines in the state of New Jersey. That would be Rutgers and Montclair State University. The other schools have decided to just go on with recommending them. So COVID cases and COVID related hospitalizations have increased a bit over the last few weeks, according to the CDC. And the Rutgers spokeswoman, Dory Devlin, said students can request exemptions from vaccine requirements, and those would be done on a case-by-case basis. She said, quote, "Our immunization requirements for students are designed to protect their health in a densely populated community and the health of others, including fellow students, staff, and patients," she said. "We will continue to follow the public health trends and adjust our requirements as needed." She noted that only 17 of the 60,303 students had not yet complied, a number that is, quote, "getting smaller daily ahead of the school opening on September 6th. The university continues to work with students to achieve 100% compliance, Stephen. Rutgers is the first university to require COVID vaccines, which prompted many federal lawsuits. Montclair State is following suit, but only for students who are living on campus and certain students who are involved in certain off-campus activities. They say this is to, slow the spread and help with public health and whatnot. We will reach 100% compliance to do so. And you know what, Stephen, to that I say, I'm pretty sure we already know. I don't think I'm breaking any ground. And I really hope that we don't get censored for this on YouTube, because you could look it up on the CDC. I did it as this article came up. And so you could just check me if you really are concerned about this. It doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not. You'll still get it and you'll still spread it. So I don't understand why we're making a vaccine required. That doesn't prevent anything from happening. Doesn't stop you from getting, doesn't stop you from spreading. Guess what? This is a secret. This is a little secret I got, Stephen. College kids are going to get close to each other and go to parties, and they're going to probably be in a lot of situations in which they cough on each other or maybe share bodily fluids. And so therefore, this does not matter. It's just totalitarian top-down control from Rutgers and a half measure from Montclair State. At least don't be half pregnant. You can't be half pregnant. Pick one or the other. Either no requirement or require it for everyone. Because this, oh, well, just if you live here. Oh, because you're not in class with people that don't live there. You're not going to parties with people that don't live there. Pick one. Pick a lane. Okay. First of all. Second of all, pick the correct lane. And it's not the one Rutgers was in because they're stupid. It's a stupid rule. It doesn't make any sense.
So in light of the issue that you raised about, censorship from YouTube, because, we're talking about the big trigger word COVID, I think it's worth treading lightly in articulating my opinion about this. I agree with you. I think the notion that we are going to try to compel students to 100% compliance, injecting something like you said that we now know does nothing in terms of prevention and or stopping the spread of an illness that, you know, I might get flagged for saying this, but COVID's over, guys. I hate to break the news. AJ broke some news earlier. I hate to break the other news. COVID's over. It's exactly what we said was going to happen at the beginning of this, where it evolves and it transpires into something that we treat and regard as a common cold. So, flu shots aren't mandatory when you're going to a public university or most private universities, I would imagine. So if we're treating this similarly to this common cold that everybody's probably going to get, once or twice, some people get it worse than others. That's how anything goes. I see no reason to mandate it. And on top of that, I think truthfully, when it comes down to the real nuts and bolts of the issue for me, you're dealing with compelling students and taking away a degree of bodily, at the end of the day, I should be able to say, with reason, what goes in and out of my body. I think if Rutgers and Montclair State wanted to take some sort of a high road on this, do a mask mandate like that to me, unpalatable. I agree, but better than at this stage of the game, at the, end of this pandemic, but post end of this pandemic, to require students to get vaccinated again is bananas to me. And we're talking again from this, they say hindsight's 2020. We know so many things. We know that some of these not as effective as they claim to be. There's more effective alternative medications that, people got a lot of flack for and people got canceled for suggesting them, that ended up working and getting approved by the FDA later. So there's so many holes, there's so many contingencies, and this is something that when it happened the first time, everybody had a problem with it. So why now, when the stakes are less high, are we going to continue to do it? Shame on Rutgers, shame on Montclair State. If you want to take some sort of, fictitious high ground on this issue, do a mask mandate. That's my compromise with you.
Not even that. It's ridiculous. If you want to take a fictitious high ground, say professors, if they need to have a mask mandate, can have a mask mandate in their classroom, not across the entire school. It is ridiculous, Stephen. And it's something that I've said since the beginning, and I'm not alone in this. I'm not taking credit, but I vividly remember having conversations with you and other friends that said, once you give them a little bit of the power, they are never, ever going to relinquish it. And that is exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing mask mandates again because the numbers are going up. It's like, no, they're never going to be where they were. This is not the same virus it was in the beginning. We know that. Stop playing stupid. Okay, don't tell me to not believe my lying eyes. And that's going to be another part that I'm going to bring up in a later story, where it's like, you are being ridiculous. It's done. Get over yourself. Relinquish a little bit of your authority. We're going to get 100% compliance. Those 16 students that aren't complying, they're going to comply. Do you realize how just totalitarian you sound? We are going to force you to put that in your body. Force you. And these are people, Stephen. The presidents of these, they are big on bodily autonomy. I promise you. I promise you, you bring up a different issue and bodily autonomy is all you are going to hear, but not for this one. Why is that?
I agree with you there is a lack of consistency, when applied to the same issue. And I don't think the circumstances are so drastically different in the issue with COVID vaccines that it warrants a complete departure from that same position. I think autonomy is autonomy, and you either keep the same lines and opinions about it, or you don't have them at all. I want to double down on what you said, and I think I would say to those 16 kids, hold strong, be the example. What's going to happen? See what happens. Take it as far as it can go. You know?
Lawsuit after lawsuit. They're a public university. But we'll see what happens there. They're already getting sued, so we'll see. We'll see how far that goes. We got a second story that I hinted at, and this is something we've been following, Stephen, for
Yes.
a while now, and that is the offshore wind projects that are going on off of New Jersey. They may be canceled, according to reporting. I should say the last story I was reading from NJ.com in a story written by Tina Kelly, and this is going to be from NJ 1015, written by Eric Scott. And they talk about how the Danish wind power developer Ørsted is reporting huge financial losses that could reach up to $2.3 billion if they're forced to cancel the project. In a conference call with investors, the CEO of Ørsted said, quote, if the walkaway scenario is the economical, rational decision for us, then this remains a real scenario for us. He talks about walking away and canceling projects in New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Maryland. There's supply chain issues. There's slowing for federal tax subsidy issues. And there's also just this issue of resistance, especially in New Jersey, off of building off of our coast. They're in a joint statement between the Senate President Nick Scuteri and Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin. They said, quote, there are still many unanswered questions about the economic impact of these projects will have on ratepayers, as well as potential impacts to one of our state's largest economic drivers, tourism at the shore. Cape May County commissioners unanimously passed resolutions to oppose the offshore wind project and vowed to continue to fight the installation of windmills off the coast, saying that supporting the resolution claims the windmills will cost Cape May County more than $1.1 billion in lost tourism revenue. And public support is cratering. At one point, public support for this project was 76% supported it, 15% opposed it. Now, according to Monmouth polling, 54% are in favor of it, while 40% oppose it. And a majority of that slip happened between Republicans, who went from 69% support to 28% support, and independents, who went from 77% support to 52% support. There's also a widespread thought that it's leading to whales and other aquatic mammals washing up on our shores. In fact, another whale was just found on our beaches on Tuesday. And while, quote, no scientific evidence has been presented linking the whale dust to the project, an investigation by a GAO has been launched, which is something that we talked about. And I want to say this one more time. It says no scientific evidence has been presented to support this. And there's another article in the New York Times that really goes and bashes and says, because, these people, kooks and crazies, for saying that there's any connection there, basically. And to that I say, don't tell me not to believe my lion eyes. More whales are washing up on our shores than they have been before since the advent of sonar technology. Or not the advent of solar technology, but the sonar technology that has been used to map out the floors for these projects, right? We know that whales and other aquatic mammals communicate through sonar. Also, something else. The scientific community has told me wrong information a lot over the last 3 years. So forgive me for, again, believing what I'm seeing instead of believing what our quote-unquote experts are trying to get across. Because guess what? In this modern era that we are living in, and Stephen, you know me, I'm a rational thinker. I don't go crazy on conspiracy nonsense. Like, that's just not me. I don't go down those rabbit holes. But I will say this, it seems to me since 2020, everybody that the mainstream media has labeled a conspiracy theorist, give them 6 months, and then they're exactly right. So excuse me for not believing the New York Times for this one, or the quote unquote scientific experts who they don't say it's not happening, mind you, Stephen. They just say we don't have evidence that that is happening. But they'll blame, some other climate change nonsense that maybe tangentially might be related. And I'm not saying that that's not also related. But it's so crazy. Again, it's what gets me and boggles my mind about these types of stories, Stephen. It's the lack of consistency, right? Why are we putting windmills offshore? I'm going to do a series of questions. Why are we putting windmills offshore, Stephen?
I would imagine it's to generate clean energy
And why do we need clean energy?
because there is a climate crisis that requires us to transition to green energy for a sustainable future.
And who is responsible for that climate crisis?
I would say that there's a lot of characters involved in that, but I would say largely corporations that
Well, generally
engage in.
human beings, right?
Oh, human. Okay, all right, broad
Yeah,
scale.
we're going
Humans.
general humans, right? Human caused climate change, right?
Sure, sure, sure.
Doing what? Because they're what? They are actively changing
The
climate
environment.
conditions, right? In the environment. So our proposal to fix this is to do what? Actively change the climate and the environment.
I see the line you're drawing here. I see how this is working.
And then we're supposed to pretend, oh, this isn't part of that climate change. No. This is good climate change. We're changing the climate in a good way. This is good climate change. Good climate change. Right, Steve?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, all right. A lot of thoughts, a lot of things, many opinions. All right. So I'm gonna take it big and bring it in. So I think on its face, this project, when we first learned about it, at this point, it's probably well over a year and a half, probably coming up on 2 years now that this has been in talks. Um, Seems to be like a good idea. I remember being quite excited about it. It's this sort of frontier. We're pioneering in green energy. New Jersey seems particularly suited to host this kind of establishment, and the return on investment seemed pretty good. As we progress, as we learn more about these things, like you said, there are a whole host of issues that come up. There's the obvious conflict, like you said, the Cape May suit had mentioned with tourism, and I believe the most common term I've heard is eyesore that these things would be for the coast. Granted, I think the number that Cape May threw out there was a bit hyperbolic, and I think it's a little predictive to assume that the losses would be that great just because there are some windmills in the ocean. It doesn't negate all of the tremendous amusements and facilities and activities and things to do on the New Jersey shore, up and down the coast that aren't just the beach. Like there's more to it than the beach and the scenery. So I think that that's a bit hyperbolic, but a point valid nonetheless. I think what's interesting for me is Orsted's position on this, right? Where they're saying, well, if it makes more sense for us to, financially walk away, we're going to do that. I don't know how much of that I buy. I believe that this company's mission statement is to prioritize the proliferation of sustainable green energy. So I think that this economic position that they're taking, in my opinion, based on all of these facts, seems like a really easy cop out because you don't have answers to questions that people are asking, namely these issues regarding marine life, these issues regarding how it's going to affect our tourism, these issues regarding what is the return on this investment actually going to be? How efficient are these things actually going to be? How long is it going to take to build them? How permanent are these jobs that you're creating going to be? We don't have these answers, and it seems like they're not too quick or really interested in being quick in coming up with these answers. And so as these events keep happening and as they get more and more resistance from local municipalities, which then bleeds into, state level issues. And eventually we're going to be having a national conversation about this because Orsted is involved in a lot of national projects. I think we're going to find that they're, flip flopping on a really big promise, something that, whether or not you like it, was going to be a great stimulus for the economy, was going to bring a lot of industrial jobs, was going to put a lot of food on a lot of people's plates, was going to open, potentially a great green future for New Jersey to be the pioneer of. So to me, this is something that the state has been dealing with for many years. And it seems like the closer we get to when it's supposed to happen, the shakier it feels. And that is never a good sign in any deal. As you get closer to closing, you should feel more confidence than ever in both the parties, being able to meet their obligations and move forward on the same page. So, listen, whether or not they walk away remains to be seen. I think if they do, we're going to learn a tremendous lesson. And not for nothing, not to sound like, oh, see, this is not a typical comment from me, but not to sound like some sort of nationalist, maybe is like the best word to say it. I would rather have this conversation with an American company. If you're based out in Denmark and you're doing your things over there and you want to come and you end up walking away, fine, get out of here. We could find some American innovation. We could find some people that are more willing to work on our terms and chase reasonable goals and not impose standards from a different culture onto a project in this culture. I don't think that's an unreasonable position to have or an unreasonable stance to take. So if Orsted passes, their loss, let's get an American company in there that's more aligned with the values and traditions associated with business in this country, and maybe we could proceed with less controversy.
Well, I think, Stephen, I guess the difference here is I don't want anybody to do it. I don't want Orsted or another American company or an American company. I couldn't care less. I think this is just a bad idea. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, and you're right. They're after green energy. It's the green energy of money, right? That's green, and that's produces a lot of
Yes.
energy. But now, look, let's put it this way. Okay, you're going to put these ugly, hideous things out there in the middle of the ocean that continues to put sonar, create sonar activity that's going to completely interfere with marine life. And I don't care that you claim there's no scientific. I'm not a scientist. I'll put that full well, and you don't have to believe me, but like, let's use a little bit of common sense here, folks. Like, it's obvious. It does not take a scientist to just point out some pretty clear, basic, obvious things. It it doesn't take a lawyer to tell you something, to tell you killing somebody's illegal. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not breaking any news. Okay. Two. Now, so those are the two big things. You're going to create this eyesore and you're clearly impacting the economy in some way. Three is wind energy, not even the best one. Like, there's other better, greener, more efficient forms of energy that we just don't focus on. So stop being ridiculous. Like, it just boggles my mind. Why are we getting so hung up on solar and wind and these energy forms when they're not even the most effective? We know the most effective. We know the cleanest. We know the greenest. Right? We do. It's nuclear. Sorry. Oop, oop, did it again. Broke some news. Um, like, why are we playing these stupid games? You know what they say on the boardwalk, right, Steve? I know you know what they say on the boardwalk about stupid games.
You win stupid prizes.
That's right. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I'm sick of playing stupid games, Steve. Look at where it's gotten us. A
It's
lot of
gotten us
stupid prizes.
I was going to say a lot of stupid prizes in the way of, dead mammals on our shores and angry letters from residents and municipalities and councils. And at a certain point, I think if you're running like a cost benefit analysis on this, you have to boil it down to, is it worth fighting all of the resistance? Because I think one of the most important things that story mentioned was that the public opinion on this is shifting in the opposite direction rather quickly. The staggering drop in support from the Republican Party that you noted, I think it was 60 something percent to 24%, is remarkable.
And you know what the New York Times says? It's because of that, because of unclaimed scientific founding of killing these whales. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, what, You can't spin it both ways. It sounds like one group of these people cares about the environment and the other one doesn't, and it's not the ones you want.
Well,
That's
on
what it
top
sounds
of that,
like to me.
regardless of what the New York Times says, the fact of the matter is public support for this project is decreasing. That's a fact. Why then are we going to continue? Because this feels, eerily similar to the situation that we were talking about before this, where it's like people don't really, care for the vaccine mandates at these universities. People are not in favor of these things, but the administration is going to continue to seek their 100% compliance because they have some goal that is, in the best interest of the people. When the people are saying, no, that's not our best interest, you're wrong, and we're not going to do that. And I don't think this situation is that dissimilar. Their government is trying to continue to get this project to go on. They're going to continue to have these conversations, and the public is more so starting to say, hey, we don't really want this anymore. We don't support this anymore. But, you know, Lord knows that Governor Murphy needs to be the greenest governor in the country. And I think that he will stop at nothing to ensure that before he leaves office, when his term is up, that this project will at least be beginning. Whatever he has to do to get it done, I think that there's a lot of reputational, clout at stake for Governor Murphy if he loses this project. And I wouldn't be surprised if, as this story continues to develop, as it has over the past few years, we see a little bit more of an aggressive push from the state to make the amends and make the compromises to get this done before he leaves. Because again, it's all about them making sure that they get through what they know is best for us, even if we might believe otherwise. So that's my big takeaway on that.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that's a beautiful place to end this conversation, Stephen. It's all about 100% control. And that's what it's always ever been about. They want to tell you what is good for you. They want to tell you how to live your life. And they don't care how ideologically inconsistent they sound. They don't care. Their whole ideology is inconsistency. And with that, this has been another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. I'm AJ Malillo.
Before I sign off, I would be remiss if I didn't mention just a brief note, because locationally, although I'm, we're doing for Jersey First, I'm all about Jersey, big Jersey guy. But I have been, like we talked about earlier, I relocated to Florida, and I think it's just worth mentioning a moment of support and acknowledgement for the portion of the state that just dealt with this hurricane that came through, because things were definitely like intense, very serious down here, and it was a legit storm in a part of the state that never gets hit. So I just wanted to throw a quick acknowledgement, thoughts and prayers to anybody that's affected out there, because I know some of that devastation is really serious. And as somebody who has experience quite personally with a natural disaster of that caliber, it's one where when you see it happen, it hurts no matter who it is or where it is. So just thinking about those people out there and in my new dwelling in Florida.
Yeah, that's fair. And I will say this, I have seen that it seems like the rescue efforts and the just efforts of getting everything back up and running as quickly as possible are going quite well down in Florida from what I've
Yes.
seen. So shout out to a state government that's doing well by its people down there in Florida. So with that, I'm AJ Malillo.
I'm Stephen Rombolo.
And I hope everybody has a wonderful week. We'll talk to y'all next week. Peace out, everybody.